As some of y'all may have seen, I was recently reprimanded by the Medical Board of Massachusetts. When I started streaming, I did everything that I could to make sure that this was okay. Someone filed a complaint in 2022. What many people thought was that I was doing something wrong. The board found that none of those things were true.
They went through everything and they said that nothing we did was wrong. That can't be true. So it was probably something to do with how he engaged with Reckful. I don't think it's true when he says they found that he did nothing wrong, but I do think, is it worth going over this? I don't know if this is worth it or not. There are like 3 layers to this. You have the board received some type of information and they decided to investigate based on what's been said publicly. Oh, no, I'm so sorry. I think even based on what was on the board's writing, they received a complaint or they received some sort of notification.
When I started streaming, I did everything that I could to make sure that this was okay. And then what happened is someone filed a complaint in 2022, and this is exactly why medical boards exist.
It sounds like they reached out to Dr. K to talk about it. Hey, just so you know, we received this complaint. We're investigating. It sounds like Dr. K said, okay, well, hey, why don't you go ahead and just expand your investigation and look at all the content we do so that we can get some type of ruling on it. And then the board went through everything. And it seems like, especially in regards to the Reckful stuff, the board evaluated all of Dr. K's content, especially in regards to Byron's suicide. And the board, in factoring in all of this stuff, came to a decision. So the board factors in a ton of stuff about a complaint. First they get a complaint, they do all of their investigation, they do a lot of work. And as they're deliberating, something that they're seeing, something that they're seeing is something that you're doing is not right. Probably you shouldn't do this thing anymore, or something that you've done wasn't right and you shouldn't do that ever again. Something in there was determined. And they also said that for the most part, most of what you do is fine, so you can continue on doing most of what you are doing, okay? So from this investigation, there is a consent order that is made public where the board lists, here's some like public stuff that we've observed, like here are some facts. It might be pertaining to the complaint. It might not be. It might be pertaining to what came up in their investigation. It might not be. It's probably related to why the reprimand was issued, but we don't know for sure. But here's a consent order. We've gone through all of your content. You're safe for all of it now, okay, because we've gone through all of it. However, we're going to issue a reprimand because something you did was not 100% A-okay, okay? Probably wasn't a huge deal because it was just a reprimand. There wasn't a license suspension or termination or something more serious, but still not like the best, okay? I think that what this process allows to happen is it means that the board got to do like a full review and an investigation. They probably got to communicate privately to Dr. K, hey, just so you know, this is what we found, okay? You probably should never do this particular thing again. My guess is going to be something to do with Reckful, just because of the facts that were laid out in the consent order. That's my guess. And Dr. K probably said like, okay, sure, yeah, I won't do that anymore. Sure, okay, yeah, I understand. I mean, he's dead, so that's not happening. Like we do things differently now, it's fine. We've already implemented a bunch of things that are different, which I believe was listed in the consent order. And I think Dr. K said as much. Oh, look, we're already changing all of our processes, right?
So I'm still allowed to interview people. I'm still allowed to stream. I can make mental health content on the internet, and I can see patients without restriction. So that feels really good to me. Now, a lot of people may be surprised by those findings because they're like, oh my God, like this is terrible, or what we do is terrible. And I think this is where it's like really important to understand that when we started streaming, we've had a continuous process of improvement because we take this seriously.
So when this reprimand goes out, I think it allows two different things to happen that are beneficial for both parties. One, it allows the board to say, we've gone over this, we did our due diligence, we made sure that nothing crazy is going to happen in the future, and we've taken care of that, and we've issued a reprimand for behavior that we thought wasn't 100% on the up and up. But it also allows Dr. K to come away and say, hey, look, they went over all of our content. None of our stuff is changing substantively. And I didn't do anything so horrible because it was just like, it was just a reprimand that's going to last for however much, period of time. I don't know how long a reprimand you have to post that notice for. I think more or less is what's happened. I think when Dr. K says...
So the reprimand is for undermining the public's faith in the profession. So in the board complaint, and what many people thought was that I was doing something wrong. So this includes everything from being negligent or in some way responsible for rectal suicide, that I was streaming live therapy, that I was conducting the practice of medicine on the internet with patients. The board found that none of those things were true.
They went through everything and they said that nothing we did was wrong. That can't be true because they issued a reprimand. They didn't issue the reprimand for nothing. Something happened that they weren't happy with, but it's likely, given a good faith interpretation of Dr. K and assuming that the board isn't like a horrible corrupt institution, it's likely that whatever bad behavior they thought did happen has already been remedied by the new processes and procedures that Dr. K and his org have implemented, and they're not as concerned about it going forward. That's yeah, I think that's more or less what's happened here. Okay. He said that they penalized him because it messed with the public's faith. Yeah, but there's probably something that he violated in terms of ethics in order to have that, in order to get a reprimand for that, right? My guess is going to be that if you could see into the board's deliberation, it's going to be it's going to have something to do with a violation within this ethical opinion, which is why it's being cited to here. And the violation relating to this ethical opinion is probably going to come from the fact pattern laid out here. So it was probably something to do with how he engaged with Recful, and the violation probably had something to do with the AMA ethical opinion 8.12, section 8, subsection 12, or whatever. So that's going to be my guess, because of how this was laid out. I think any sort of doctor having a patient die would make me think it's not the best doctor to go to. Well, then you will never see a specialist in any like highly lethal disease area in your entire life. I hope you don't get cancer because you'll never go to an oncologist. I hope you don't ever have, issues with your organs because you're never going to visit someone in internal medicine. I hope that you never have surgery because every surgeon is probably a patient. Like what a bizarre thing. Yeah. I'm confused why they would reprimand without spelling out exactly why. Is the reprimand mainly to alert the public or only to correct Dr. K's behavior? If I had to guess, and I'm treading on imaginary ice here, my guess is going to be that the reprimand allows him to get something in writing so that he doesn't mess up again. It allows them to do a full investigation so they know that nothing super serious is going on. It allows them to alert the public that they know that something not quite great has happened, but it gives him enough flexibility and wiggle room to kind of like continue his practice without feeling like he's being crucified over a particular thing, is going to be my guess. Keep in mind that when you have a board, right, there's always like countervailing forces when you have a particular body where the body wants to be able to make good rulings on things. But the body also wants to be participated in. It wants people to see it as legitimate, right? Remember when we talk about international law, when we talk about like the law of armed conflict, we're trying to balance out having civilians be protected while also allowing nations to engage in war, right? Because if one of these gets too big, then no one's going to pay attention, right? If you had a board, I'm so outside of my. If somebody here like is a member of any of these boards or is subject to any of these boards, you have something to say, feel free to interject. But my guess is going to be that boards probably don't want to come out, especially on a simple reprimand. They don't want to come out and say like, this is exactly what this person did wrong, particularly to this thing, because that might be particularly damaging to the reputation of somebody that is board certified. So the board would end up kind of undermining itself. And a lot of the people that are a member of these organizations that are board certified might look at the board with a lot more animosity, where they're like, okay, well, fuck you. I'm getting board certified by this shit. If I fuck up with one thing, you're going to publish this mistake to the entire fucking world. And now I've got to now I'm fucked. Thanks. You've nuked my fucking career, board. Thank you so much for the reprimand, right? That's my guess. So the issuing this type of consent order gives enough flexibility to all of the parties involved to walk away and kind of like save face, right? Probably did something bad in relation to these ethical opinions here. Probably, These are the ethical opinions. This was your behavior relating to rectal. There's probably something bad that happened. You're issuing a reprimand. You can present this as you'd like to the public or to future patients, whoever you have to make this reprimand publicly available to. You can present it as you want. That's fine. But you know that we know like this thing happened and hopefully it doesn't happen again, right? It allows everybody to kind of like walk away with everything intact, if that makes sense. At Destiny, the board does not care. They are designed for the client's protection. They are designed to hold us accountable, period. Here, they likely didn't have a specific thing they could target. Are you a physician? I'd be interested in chatting with you. Intuitively, I'm leaning so heavily against what you're saying intuitively that I don't know if I believe it. I'm sure that, one, is the board typically made up of physicians or people that are very close to physicians? The board exists probably, when you have any sort of like disciplinary system, let's move away from the online world, okay? Move away from Twitch and the retarded world of like, we bad people because fuck them, right? When you have like compliance boards and you're issuing punishments, all right, especially for doctors, okay? Because these are people that have invested extensively in their training. There's a couple of things that you've got to keep in mind. You got to be very, very, very careful of these things, okay? One is you don't want to be destroying people's careers with such a heavy investment without a really, really, really good reason, okay? Because they've invested heavily in their career, and you're destroying a huge investment. And two, you're discouraging other people from stepping in and being part of a particular field, right? Well, fuck, this is a board. These guys fucking throw the book at you for everything. Fuck that. I'm not going to be a doctor of whatever the fuck that is. I'm going to go and do some different shit. Fuck that. I'm not going to have my entire 12 years of med school, college, and everything else thrown under the bus because of a reprimand. Fuck that bullshit, right? So we can say that like boards exist to protect the interests of patients. They do, of course, but for a behavior that's not like a total revocation of a license, the goal here, 1 billion%, is supposed to be corrective action. What you want to do is you want to make it so that this person doesn't do this mistake again. Your goal is not to destroy the career, right? Now, my guess, I'm totally guessing, and if somebody has one of these, like a license revocation or whatever or something, my guess is going to be that for a big suspension or for a revocation, I bet that these orders, they're a lot more detailed. That'd be my guess. I could be wrong. If somebody has a link to one, we could check. But my guess is going to be that when a license is fully revoked, I bet they get into more detail for it. But for a reprimand, you're not trying to destroy the person's reputation or career. You just want to give a stern warning. Now it's in writing, and you let the public know as well that you've done an investigation, and then you move on from there. But it's not just to keep the patient, keep the patient's interest in mind. It's probably also for corrective action for the individual practitioner themselves, and to make sure that they correct their action and they behave well in the future. That's my guess. Destiny, corrective action. Meanwhile, Dr. K says they found he did nothing wrong. I don't think it's true when he says they found that he did nothing wrong, but I do think, because Dr. K comes off to me as an intelligent person, here's like, now I'm in total conjecture land, okay? I have no proof of any of this. I don't have any behind the scenes conversations or anything, but now I'm in total conjecture land. My guess is going to be that after Byron kills himself, especially, and maybe even after the conversations, Dr. K probably talked with his team and was like, okay, this is obviously something's not good here, okay? It feels like we're probably crossing boundaries in terms of therapy. Obviously, Reckful just fucking killed himself. I'm telling him that I want to be with him for 2 years and I love him. It's probably not okay. My guess is that after the Reckful stuff, or maybe even while it was ongoing, they probably started to implement processes and procedures where they were like, we need to do something to make sure that this doesn't happen in the future. And my guess is going to be is that by the time the board started investigating and everything, they probably found that they'd already implemented a lot of these things and that it probably wasn't going to be as much of a concern in the future. That's my guess, okay? Destiny, doesn't the language of the reprimand imply that it is possible that Dr. K didn't do anything too far out of the box, but it was still a faith loss and that's why they gave it to him? Absolutely not. The written language implies the complete and total opposite. It says in very clear words, the respondent has engaged in conduct that undermines the public confidence in the integrity of the medical profession. And when they talk about engaging in conduct that undermines the public confidence in the integrity of the medical profession, the ethics rules that they're citing in here, okay, up here, these AMA ethical opinions, his behavior, his conduct was probably contrary to some part of these ethics rules. And then the conduct that he engaged in that was contrary to those ethics rules were probably contained in the fact pattern that was listed on the consent order, which had to do generally with Byron, generally. Do you have a guess as to what that specific conduct might be? I don't know. Probably inappropriate client-patient relationship or public or like something inappropriate. I can't tell you in particular because I don't have a very thorough understanding of the underlying ethics at play. I don't know any of this code. I've never read any of it before, and I don't know any case law. I've never seen any or any like prior decrees that were ordered. So I couldn't tell you. I could barely guess, but. You can engage in conduct that is irrelevant to medicine that needs to be disciplined by the board, and both sides submit evidence to the statements of fact, as far as I'm aware. I doubt it. I seriously doubt that you would ever get a reprimand from an ethics board if that reprimand doesn't directly violate some sort of your ethics code or some sort of agreement that you've made in relation to your job. I don't think you would ever get a reprimand that is outside of your conduct as a, in this case, as a healthcare practitioner. Do you think that the criticism against Dr. K are valid? I feel like people have been pretty vindictive on Twitter. I don't know why they hate him, but it doesn't feel like it comes from a place of actual concern or care. It feels like it just comes from a hater place. I'm not entirely sure why. I don't know why he like gets some people so fucking riled up. I don't know.